In this second video on questionnaires, we're going to have a look at designing our questions now. Now typically in your GCSE exam you'll criticise a question first, and then underneath they may ask you to write a better question or write a new question, and it's important to make sure that those criticisms you've just given aren't present in your question that you write yourself. Let's have a look at this. Michael wants to find out how many animals are seen by a vet, design a question he could use. So the first thing I'm going to need is a question for people to answer, and what's important on this is that I add in a time frame. So how many rabbits have you seen in the last month? Now I might want to change that to in the last week, yesterday. As long as I've got a valid time frame and it works with the question, that's fine. Then I'm going to need some response boxes, so I'll just add in 4, and typically 4 is a good number. It's enough to give you a decent spread of answers. 2 or 3 is not good enough and you need more than that, and generally if you tend to go 5, 6, 7 it's a little bit overkill, so 4 is okay. Now when I put in what the options are on these response boxes, I need to make sure I cover all of my options, so it's important there's a 0 in there, and I need to make sure that I don't overlap. So if I've got 0 to 2, my next one's going to have to start at 3, my next one will start at 5, and then on the final response box it's really important that I make sure I cover all of the possible options. So this one I'm going to call 7 plus, and there's my completed question. A couple of tips just to recap on this. Make sure that you include at least 4 response boxes. Include the time frame within the question. Now look at the actual question itself and see whether there are any clues in that. Make sure your response boxes don't overlap, and cover all of your possible options. Here's a question for you to have a go at yourself. Pause the video here, write down what you think your question and response boxes is going to look like, hit play, and I'll show you mine. Okay, so Danny wants to find out how many cars are sold by a car dealer. It doesn't give me a time frame, so I'm going to make one up and make sure I include it. And we're going to say how many cars have been sold in the last week. Now I'm going to assume this is a fairly successful car salesperson, so instead of having fairly small numbers, I'm going to go with 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 16 or more. So that makes sure that it covers all of the possible eventualities, 0 and anything bigger than 15, and I've got no overlaps in there, so that's going to hit me full marks on my exam. Here's a second question to have a go at. This time I've removed the tips section, so this one's a little bit trickier. Write down the question and some valid response boxes, and then compare it to my answer. Okay, Arnold wants to know how many helicopters there are landing at an airport. So we're going to design the question first of all. How many helicopters landed at the airport yesterday? Now in your question you may have said how many helicopters landed at the airport in the last week, in the last month, in the last year. They're all fine as long as you have a valid time frame. Although I think Arnold would get a little bit bored watching helicopters landing for a whole year. So I'm going to include my 4 response boxes, and because this is only over the course of a day, I don't really want to have massive numbers for this, so I've gone with 0 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, and then a final option of 7 or more. You'll notice that on the final box I've called it 7 or more rather than 7 plus. Either is absolutely fine. Okay, well done if you've got something that matches that. Again, all the answers will look slightly different, but it's important you stick to those principles. Make sure you have a time frame, you don't overlap, and your response boxes cover every option, and of course there being 4 response boxes. Thanks for watching this video.